Well, here it is. All of the 4.0 Reimagined MOCs together at last. This has to be one of the most satisfying things I've ever seen. I started 4.0 Reimagined about 4 months ago, and now it's finally complete. Whenever I first started it, I did not think I would actually finish. And here we are today with all of them complete. So what I'm going to do for this video is I'm going to show you my least favorite to my favorite out of all these MOCs. And so I'll just take them out after I give the camera a brief overview of the MOC. And please give me your tier list of your favorite to least favorite in the comments. My least favorite would have to be Bulk, just because he's the first one I built and he's kind of inferior now. He's very simple, and I mean, he was a cool MOC at the time, but he has so much exposed area around the back, and his arms are very simple, and his construction is not really that advanced at all. But, I mean, I'm still nostalgic for him since he was the very first 4.0 Reimagined MOC that I built. And after Bulk, I would have to say Jawblade. I really don't like how he went together. At first, I thought he was going to be a very cool MOC, but he turned out to not be really that cool. His construction is not too simple. He's jointed right here, and I think, yeah, that's the only spots he's jointed at, which that was a slight challenge, getting him to be jointed right there and to cover that up. But also, he's very breakable, as you just saw. This piece just fell off. I used a lot of Lego pieces around this MOC and just to cover up all the gaps, and so I don't really like how that turned out. And after Jawblade comes his hero, Farno. I really do not like Farno at all, and I don't really know why. I think it's just due to the fact that I used so many Lego pieces right here because I ran out of red, and so he didn't turn out very good. I like his leg design. I think that's really cool. And he looks like a diver, but he's really not just that cool. And he's missing a few pieces. He had a red jet right here and one right here, but I had to take those off for Breeze. And so after I review Breeze, I'll take those off and put them back on Inferno so you can see what he would look like with those two jet pieces back on. And after Farno is Toxic Reaper. Toxic Reaper was kind of boring and lame from the start. He was very boxy. He's kind of just like a rectangle from here down, and I never liked that. And he's also not green enough. I even added some green pulley wheels right here on his, I guess, the side of his knee, just to give him some more green, but even still, that didn't really fix him at all. I like the guns, but besides that, there's not really a redeeming quality to his design. Jimmy is next on the list. He's not very cool to me, mainly because he's so Lego dependent. I really do like using Lego pieces, but I don't like it whenever they're the dominating feature and when that's really the only detailing I use, just Lego pieces. But I do like his gun, and his leg design isn't just terrible. And I like the use of that of Thorn Rack's head back there. And I think he actually went up quick for a 4.0 Reimagined MOC. I think I built him in maybe 3 hours. So I did like that about him, that he didn't take very long. Surge is next up on the list because he's also very dependent on Lego pieces, and a piece just fell off. I guess that's from me messing with him earlier. And I do like his design. I think he looks good, but he just doesn't really compare to some of the other MOCs on the shelf right now. I always liked Surge 4.0's head, well, slash Surge 1.0. I thought it was a pretty good head, at least for Surge, that is. I liked his gun. Also, it's not very complex, but the design is pretty good. His sword was very simple. I feel like I could have done a better design for that, but I guess it works for him not being a super complex MOC. And next up is Breeze. I don't really have much to say about her, though. She's actually very recent. I think she was the next to last hero, if I remember right. But she really isn't very cool, in my opinion. She's kind of too bulky. I didn't really make any MOCs in 4.0 Reimagined that are her style. She's very bulky and very filled out, which is a cool look for a MOC, but it doesn't really fit the actual set. I do like her Meteor Blaster, though. That looks pretty cool. And they're the jets that I said that I had to take from Farno. I'll give those back in just a second. And she has just the right amount of white that the actual set had. But besides that, there's really not too much to say about her that I did right. Next up is Thorn Rack. He was pretty cool for what he is. I don't just love the actual Thorn Rack set, so I think he turned out pretty good for what he was supposed to be. I really like these Bionicle wing pieces too. Those are super cool. I really like how those look on this MOC. And the Stinger, I love that Bionicle knife piece. I think he turned out pretty good for what he was supposed to be. There is a little spot underneath that isn't super well covered up, but you're not really going to see that if he's just on a display table or something like that. But his design actually, I feel like, is really true to the actual set, so I think I did a pretty good job on him. Core Hunter is next. I do like Core Hunter, but he just kind of, he has a few flaws with him. He should have the red spiky shoulders, but at the time I didn't know what to do for that, and so I kind of just left them how they were. And his claw, I really like that. That's probably one of the best things on this MOC. And I shouldn't have given him pistons. He really isn't heavy enough to warrant putting pistons on. And another thing is his chest plate comes off a lot, and I just don't like when that happens, when there's a loose design choice that will fall off if you pick up the MOC. That really isn't a very good thing. But besides that, there's not really much to note on this MOC. Now, after Core Hunter, we have Split Face, which he's pretty cool. I like his design. He is very heavy, though, and so he doesn't stand all too well. He'll kind of topple if you just stand him up without checking if he'll be stable. If you just set him down, most of the time he will kind of collapse. And that's just because he's so top heavy. If you see, his legs are probably a little bit too short, and his feet aren't exactly big enough. They need a little more traction on the hill for him to stand better. And also his arm right here, it's kind of gets restricted by that armor plate, and also it's very heavy, and so if he was an actual set, I would not recommend buying him because he's not very playable. I do like his gun. That's really cool. And I do like his claw, but it's just a little bit too heavy. And now we have Nex. I really like this MOC. He probably shouldn't actually have lasted this long. I know he's not actually just that complex of a MOC, but for whatever reason, I really do like his design. And I think he turned out very well for what he was based on. And for whatever reason, he's just always stuck out to me, even now. I just really like his design. At this point, it's very hard to choose between these 7 MOCs, but I'd have to say XT4 is next. He does have a very good design, and I enjoyed building him probably the most of all of the MOCs. And I think he turned out to be very true to the actual set. And my favorite design has to be the 2 Evo heads for his feet. I think that's just a really cool design choice. And he might be one of the more simple MOCs, but I definitely think he's one of the best. Evo is next up. He was the 6th 4.0 Reimagined MOC that I made, so it's kind of ironic that he's the 6th coolest in my opinion. I'm surprised he held up to the competition so well, but he had a very outstanding design with the arm cannon and just how his torso is designed. I think it looks very good, especially with those two shoulder plate pieces. Voltex is next. He lasted quite a while, but he's not good enough to compare to the remaining competition. He was one of my favorite MOCs at the time that I built him, but now he's kind of outclassed by the MOCs you see before you. I do like his gun design too, and I kind of built that very last minute. I think that's the last thing I built on him, and so I was kind of just ready to be done. So it could have been cooler, but I think the design is pretty good for what it's supposed to be. I really like the purple. Voltex was always one of the most interesting villains to me, but unfortunately, it's his time to go. Next up is Raka. He's definitely very interesting and eye-catching with the gold, and I think I did a really good job portraying 4.0 Raka with this design. And I'm sad to see him go because it's honestly really hard to choose between him and Stormer, but I'm just going with my gut and saying that Stormer is cooler than him. His crossbow design is cool, and I really like the use of these two golden arc pieces. I think those look really good. And it's unfortunate that he has to go next. Next we have Stormer. He is a very, very interesting MOC. Just with his overall design, there's a lot of triangular shaping that I had to do. I had to use a lot of different angles that I'm not familiar with, and so he was definitely a challenge, to say the least, but he turned out good, and as you can see, he stood out for quite a while, but he's definitely not quite as cool as Speedo Demon or Black Phantom. His sword is super cool. I always liked Stormer 4.0 sword, and so I really didn't change the design much, just because I liked it so much. Unfortunately, the drones, as you can tell, some of them don't have their stickers, because when I was young, I liked to take them off for no reason, and so I'm left with only 2 drones with stickers on them. So that's unfortunate, but once you look past that, he's a pretty cool MOC. The use of Stormer 5.0's heads as the knee armor is really cool. I like that design choice. I know he has this big apparatus sticking out right here to connect to the arm to give it stability, and that's unfortunate, but it is needed because this gun arm is very heavy. But besides that, there's not really anything to note about this MOC. This is a tricky decision, but I'd have to say Black Phantom is not as cool as Speedo Demon. Just in my opinion, I do like his gun, and I really enjoyed building that, but just to me, nothing on Black Phantom compares to Speedo Demon and his bike. I do like the use of the rubber bands with that armor plate and how it glides over that Lego piece. I just think that's a really cool design, and how his legs are connected with that odd connection point. I think he is a very cool MOC, but I just don't think he compares to Speedo Demon. And now finally we have Speedo Demon. His bike, I think, took me about 8 hours by itself, and I just really think it turned out great. I like him also. I really like the use of the corroder heads as shoulder plates, and his extra arms are pretty cool also, and his head is slightly modified, as I'm sure you've already noticed, and I just think he really looks great. He looks a lot cooler than Black Phantom, to me at least. The steering does work pretty well. You kind of have to take his hands off though, and I mean it works a little bit, not quite as much as I wanted it to whenever I designed it, but the more and more details you add on, the less kind of movability and just the less it functions quite right, to be honest. And so, you know, I just kind of settled for how it turned out, and I cannot get this handlebar. There we go. And the use of the 5.0 visor is also really cool to me. Just overall, this has been my favorite MOC. Just, I think he's the coolest MOC that I've ever built. And one last thing real quick. Here's Farno with those 2 jet pieces. One right here for the muzzle of his meteor blaster, and then one right here for, I guess, tricep armor. And so that's just what he looks like fully completed with those two jets on. Well, here all of them are back together. 4.0 Reimagined was definitely fun in some ways, and I wish I could say that I'm upset that it's over, but I'm actually really glad because it was pretty hard. And so now I'll be on to different MOC series and be making more of my own MOCs. Probably not really. I probably won't do another Reimagined series for a long time. If I do one again, I don't know. It was very challenging, so I might not be doing another one. But thanks for watching, and please like and subscribe. And if you haven't seen their reviews, there will be links in the description.